Today we are working on Psalm 122. Now, Psalm 122, traditionally in magic, often is used for success in public speaking, for business success, for receiving the blessings of life, and it can also be used to invoke the divine law of restitution. Today, I want to use it to receive your blessings. This is oftentimes depicted in that judgment card of the tarot, just really receiving, being open and receptive to all the blessings that are already here for you. Because what happens is a lot of times we don't realize that infinite intelligence already gave us everything, but we haven't released it into being. We haven't received it. We've blocked it for some reason. And so this is a psalm that we can use to unblock our receptivity to all of those blessings. Now, the way we work psalm magic is very simple and effective. We take the psalm in question and we speak it out loud all the way through once without stopping. We call this an incantation. And then we go back through that same psalm and we take it verse by verse and consider each verse or each line in turn and search for occult hidden meanings that are within each of those verses. And we call those magic seeds. And there's an infinite amount of magical seeds. And then those seeds take root, and in a very real way they grow, and then they blossom forth and then bear fruit after their kind. And that's the way psalm magic works, and that's what we're going to do right now together. You and I with Psalm 122. I was glad when they said unto me, let us go into the house of the Lord. Our feet shall stand within thy gates, O Jerusalem. Jerusalem is builded as a city that is compact together, whither the tribes go up, the tribes of the Lord, unto the testimony of Israel, to give thanks unto the name of the Lord. For there are set thrones of judgment, the thrones of the house of David. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. They shall prosper that love thee. Peace be within thy walls, and prosperity within thy palaces. For my brethren and companions' sakes, I will now say, peace be within thee. Because of the house of the Lord our God, I will seek thy good. That's a lot of nice things to say. So let's get to work here. It starts out with, I was glad. What a great way to start any kind of magic. I was glad. Now, I was glad is in the past tense, and we do that a lot in magic to make something occur. We put it in the past tense to make it as if it's already established. If you want something, you act as though you already have it, and that's a magical tool. So right now we are declaring that we're already glad. We're already glad because they told us to, and we'll talk about who they are in a minute, let us go into the house of the Lord. First and foremost, we need to remind ourselves who the Lord is and what that means, so that we take this out of the religious and into the magical. The magical understanding of the Lord is not something personified. It's not a deity in the sense of the word that there's some sort of personality separate from us that we have to interact with. We have to hopefully gain their favor, and maybe they'll be nice to us and do something for us. That's not what is a magical understanding of what the Lord is of these Psalms. The Lord of the Psalms represents the force, the one force. There is only one. And we have to remind ourselves each and every time we work psalm magic, we reorient ourselves to that. There's one force, there's one source, there's one power, there's one substance. In all the universe, there's but one. And that oneness is the power that makes magic work, because there's nothing to oppose it. So if this one force is for us, then literally nothing can be against us. One with this force is a majority. So no matter what it is that you are bringing to this psalm, it's solved because of the fact that the Lord is one. This is not a male deity. It's very important to understand that even though these psalms were colored by the patriarchal religion out of which they were scribed. That patriarchal religion is not what is being depicted by the Lord. The Lord is pre-gender. The Lord is pre-gender. That means that there is no division. There is no separation. There is no male or female, good or bad, light or dark. There's none of that. This is all oneness. This is pure oneness. Now, this oneness has different qualities that are important for us to recognize, and we'll just go through them quickly. There's infinite qualities of spirit, just like there are infinite seeds of magic, but we'll go through the main ones that we work with. And that's the idea of the angels. The angels are focal points of the qualities of God. In other words, they're God's messengers. And so there's the messenger of infinite life. There's one life. You know that life goes on. Once a body dies, once a planet dies, once a sun dies, once anything dies, life goes on. Life is eternal. So there's life. Life cannot be destroyed because life is eternal. There is soul, and that's who you are. You're a soul. You're an individuation of infinite intelligence. This force personifies itself as you. You are a focal point of infinite intelligence. You are not separate from this Lord. You are an extension of the Lord. You are one with the Lord, like a beam of sun is to the sun. A sunbeam to the sun is a very interestingly apt metaphor for what you are. Another quality is infinite spirit. Spirit is that which cannot be destroyed. There's nothing that can thwart it. There's nothing that can oppose it. There is nothing that can threaten infinite spirit. It's invulnerable. And you are infinite spirit. You are one with infinite spirit. So ultimately you are invulnerable yourself. Infinite intelligence knows all. Infinite genius, infinite intelligence, knows how to create life, photosynthesis, mitosis, the ordering of cells and atoms, and infinite intelligence beyond our understanding. Science will never uncover all of the mysteries of infinite intelligence because there's too many. Just like we will never uncover all the seeds of these Psalms. Infinite truth. Divine truth, never-ending truth. If you recognize that truth always liberates us, no matter what, if we know what's true, we are free. And God's truth, infinite truth, is always available to us at any moment of time and point of space. You're never going to make 2 + 2 equal anything other than 4. And so God's truths cannot be thwarted. You can only lie. And if you live within a lie, that means that you're living within something that doesn't exist. And so that's good news, because God's truth, if we invoke it, if we recognize it, if we allow it to be present in our life, dispels everything that's not like itself. We have divine and perfect love. And it's been stated that perfect love casts out all fear. That's because fear is simply a shadowing of, or a blockage of, or a suppression of love. So when we allow love free reign, fear has no place there. So infinite love is the fabric of the universe, and it's the force out of which you are created. You are a creature of pure love, whether you realize it or not, whether you act like it or not, it doesn't matter. It's the truth. Infinite law. God's laws cannot be disobeyed. To disobey one of God's laws is simply to go to sleep and dream about something that's not possible. That's the best you can come up with. Adam fell asleep in the Bible. Why? Because Adam started dreaming about trees of good and evil and ribs being pulled from Adam so that there's 2 genders, all these kinds of things about separation and all of that, all of the big dramas that ensued in the rest of that book. That Old Testament, that Hebrew Bible, all those dramas are simply Adam dreaming nightmares because Adam decided that God's laws were something to be disobeyed. Well, there is no such thing as disobeying God's laws. And God isn't mad if you disobey God's laws. But God recognizes that the only way to disobey God's laws is for you to just slumber and fantasize about things that aren't really happening. And we also have infinite presence. That's another one of those qualities. And that means that infinite intelligence, infinite love, infinite spirit, all of those qualities of God are ever present and never go away. We can block them out of our consciousness, but we can't make them go away. So, let us go into the house of the Lord. Okay, so if you were looking at this exoterically, this is one of those Psalms of Ascent. These Psalms of Ascent are simply a raising of your consciousness, a raising of your consciousness. But if you're looking within the storyline of what the mythology is here, this is talking about a pilgrimage to a temple in the city of Jerusalem. So I was glad when they said unto me, let us go into the house of the Lord. Who's they? Remember that when you're created, God installed you with part of infinite intelligence, and those thought forms are always active. Now, the thought forms that you created separate from infinite intelligence, those are the thought forms which create problems. And so the they here are the thought forms of God that are true, that are really part of who you are as a soul, said to you, let's go up. Let's go to the house of the Lord. Right? Because we're going to receive our blessings. The house of the Lord is that temple. The temple doesn't exist outside of you. The temple exists within your mind. The temple exists within your mind. And that's what you're ascending to, is that house of the Lord within your mind. Our feet shall stand within thy gates, O Jerusalem. So the city of Jerusalem is representative of peace. Jerusalem simply means the city of peace. So the peace of your mind, the peace within your mind, is the same place that you go to in the New Testament when Jesus said that the kingdom of heaven is within you. It's when you get peaceful within yourself, then you are in the house of God. You're in the city of Jerusalem. You are in heaven. The method by which you ascend and go up that hill is through finding peace, through relaxation. Jerusalem is builded as a city that is compact together. Whither the tribes go up, the tribes of the Lord unto the testimony of Israel. So this is talking about a time before when there wasn't the split of the tribes. This is before that splitting of the tribes. Similar to that before the fall from grace in the Garden of Eden. Now when we say before, we don't mean before in time, we mean before in reality. Before we decide to see things as being separate from God, we are already one with God. And so Jerusalem is a city of unity within our mind. So we go into peace within our mind to find the unity that already exists. See, a lot of people, when they are looking magically at like crossing the abyss and things like that, the whole idea of crossing the abyss in magical parlance, especially if you're a Kabbalistic magician, the whole idea of that is finding that place where you exist without separation. And the only way to do that is to find peace, is to find relaxation. People think that you need to do something scary. Well, in a way you do. You have to face your fears, but you do that by being peaceful. You face your fears and then bring them to the peace that exists within the mind of you, which is that city of Jerusalem. And that peace transforms them. It's like the fire of the alchemists. That peace refines them. And so, whither the tribes go up, the tribes of the Lord unto the testimony of Israel. The testimony in this sense means the pilgrimage to the city of Jerusalem. We can have a unified mind by doing that. And the only way to find that unity within your mind, the only way to bring your mind together, the only way to no longer have a fragmented mind, a dissociated experience, is by finding peace, is by integrating that which is conflicted within yourself. Because all inner conflict is the source of all external conflict in this world. So what we're actually doing to receive our blessings is moving up into that higher exalted state of consciousness to find peace so that we can bring all of our mind together. And when we bring all of our mind together, then we know truth. One of those qualities of God that, like we said earlier, sets us free, creates liberty. And that liberty happens when we allow that peace to be our only goal. To give thanks unto the name of the Lord. What is the name of the Lord? We talk about this in many magical systems, different names of God. And they don't have to be Hebrew names of God. There's all kinds of sacred names of God, but those are simply symbols. They are symbols ultimately. The names of God are the qualities of God. The name of anything in any kind of magical literature, whether it be biblical or grimoires or mythologies or fairy tales. The name of something, think about the name of Rumpelstiltskin, right? When she found out the name of Rumpelstiltskin, she had power over it. In the Goetia, when you know the name of the demon, you have power over it. Well, what's the name? And when you know the name of God, you don't have power over God because you're one with your power. There's no power over God because God is that which is not separated. But when you know the name of something, you know its nature. And when you know its nature, then you can become either one with it, like in this case, or you can control it, as in the case of those fairy tales and other forms of magic. So the nature of God is what we are giving thanks unto. We're giving thanks to all of those qualities of God that we just spent some time discussing and discovering. And which is why we always like to start any psalm magic with reorienting ourselves to what those names of God really mean for us. For there are set thrones of judgment, the thrones of the house of David. This is so important. Set thrones of judgment. That means that it's not up to you as an individual ego to determine God's judgment. That's something you receive. You don't tell God what your blessings are. You receive the blessings that God gave you. God doesn't need to know what you think you want, right? A lot of times people, when they're having problems, they think that God doesn't understand their problem, so they've got to define it for God. Well, you don't understand God. I have this, and I have that, and I have this, and I have that. God's infinite intelligence. God knew this before you did. Before you even recognized you had a problem, God saw that there was a problem. But remember, God doesn't do anything uninvited. So your job isn't to try to tell God what to do, because that's how you got into trouble in the first place, is thinking you knew better than God. What your job is to receive God's blessing. And there are fixed or set thrones of judgment. Thrones of judgment means that God's not going to, when they're set, God's not going to change God's mind about you. God's not going to change God's mind about you, nor do you want God to do that. God's judgment about you is what God really thinks of you. Well, what God thinks of you is based on what God thought of you when God created you. And God created you out of what? An act of love. So God's judgment of you is nothing to be afraid of. God's judgment of you is that you're amazing. You're fabulous. You are absolutely perfect because that's how you were created. Now you want God's judgment, and those are fixed. Those are set. They can't be changed. You don't want what? Your judgment. That's the judgment you want to give up. You don't want to try to convince God of anything. You want to receive what God already knows about you, because God knows much better than you do about who you are, because God thinks you're pretty awesome, because that's how you were created. And that's what the house of David is. David is the city of David. David, who's David? David is supposedly the author of these Psalms, which we know is probably not true. But in a way, David is the author of these Psalms because of what David represents. So don't think of David as a historical character. Think of David as the heart chakra itself, as the heart of who you are, as the depths of your soul, your deep mind, your ability to be an extension of infinite love. Infinite love. And so the thrones of the house of David are simply the judgments about who you are based on infinite love. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Now, when there's one way to look at that is please pray and make sure that Jerusalem stays peaceful. That's kind of a redundant prayer. Right? Oh, please let the sky be blue. Please let there be flesh on my hand. I mean, it's already the city of peace. So let's not look at it that way. Let's say, pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Pray for peace in me that is already existent in Jerusalem. Let me be as peaceful as Jerusalem is. They shall prosper that love thee. So if you love Jerusalem, you're going to prosper. If you love God, you're going to prosper. Why? Because that's just natural. Because it's like if you plant the seed and water it, it will sprout. It's not because you're being rewarded for being a good boy or a good girl. It's because you are doing that which is natural. It's just normal that you're going to prosper when you put yourself in alignment with infinite love and infinite peace, because that's where prosperity comes from. Peace be within thy walls and prosperity within thy palaces. Well, now you can be talking about Jerusalem when you say that, and that's fine, but you have to understand it's talking about you. Peace be within your walls and prosperity within your palaces. Right? Because where does Jerusalem live? In you. So the more you find that exalted state of mind, which is all peace, then prosperity and peace in your experience is a natural outcome. It's a natural outpouring of it. And peace be within thy walls and prosperity within thy palaces. That's a wonderful affirmation to take away from this psalm, just to remind yourself today when you decide to come out of this exalted state, when you start to be tempted to go back into your negative thinking in the world, when you notice that tension starts to enter into your experience, you can just remind yourself, you can key yourself back into the psalm by saying, peace be within thy walls and prosperity within thy palaces. And you can turn it into a first person. Peace be within my walls and prosperity within my palaces. For my brethren and companions' sakes, I will now say, peace be within thee. Now, that's true for you. You can absolutely do that to bless other people. And that is the exoteric meaning of this. And it's absolutely wonderful to do that. Namaste is basically what you're saying to when you see people. That's wonderful. But your brethren and companions are more than just the people you know. They're your thought forms. They're the thoughts you think with. And if you're blessing each and every one of your thoughts by saying, peace be within thee, then anything that's not a peaceful thought has to be eliminated. That's just how it works. Because what happens? Love casts out all fear. What's love? Love is relaxed and peaceful. Right? So if you say peace be with you to any negative thought, it has to be dispelled, because perfect love casts out all fear. And there's only two emotions, love and fear, relaxed and tense. So if you bless any of your problematic thought forms with peace, they must be dispelled. Because of the house of the Lord our God, I will seek thy good. The house of the Lord our God, we know, exists within you, but you have to make that pilgrimage. You have to ascend to it. And that means doing what we just said, calming, relaxing, becoming one with peace. That's how you enter the house of God. That's how you enter the temple within Jerusalem. The temple is the seat of power within the city of peace. So you're going to the most exalted, highest part of yourself, which is the most peaceful and the most lovely and the most loving, because it reflects all of those qualities of God that we described at the beginning of this psalm before we started it, to orient ourselves toward what the Lord means. So remind yourself that you are an extension of all of those qualities. And when all of those qualities are the only thing that you are willing to entertain, then you are in that exalted place. You are in that temple. You are in that temple, in that city of peace. And when that's true, then you're seeking only what? Good. You're seeking the good of God. When Jesus said, seek and ye shall find, it's just a metaphysical, magical truth. So when you're looking for something, you're going to find it. When you're knocking on a door, it's going to open. Right? When you call for something, it will answer you. So what we're saying here is that we're seeking good. We're seeking God's good. And if you're seeking that which has already been given to you, The only way to seek it is to what? Receive it. And so you're receiving that now. And so you just keep coming back to this psalm every single day until you get a sense that you have peace and certainty that all is working out just perfectly for whatever that situation is. And when you get that sense, that means that your spell is finished, that it's been cast, it's set, it's done. And you don't have to work on it anymore. You can move off of it and onto something else. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. Until next time, blessed be.